Hi everyone, welcome to tareksway.com. Today I'm with Joe Navarro and Anne Martiaud. Hi team.
Hi.
Hi.
We're going to talk about verbal and nonverbal communications. We're handling both topics today, and we decided to take questions from everyone who had a question publicly. So we received so many of them. Thank you so much. We're going to try to go over all of them, but we're not sure. So sorry in advance if we don't get to yours. Let's get right to it. So one of the biggest questions right now we're having is about virtual meetings and social distancing. And of course, the impact of verbals and nonverbals on both of these. So the first question is, Dominique, Agnès would like to know, how do you build rapport in the age of social distancing and in a virtual meeting? So maybe Joe, you'd like to start with this one.
Oh, actually, I'd like to turn that one over to Anne, because Anne is the master at this. She's doing these events 2-3 times a day sometimes, and I actually want to hear that answer from her. So Anne.
Okay, Anne.
Thank you for that compliment as well. Well, everybody has this question now. It's how do you look at each other, how do you make contact, but especially if you are you alert, are you aware? And there's so much happening. I had so many sessions where people are unprepared, not focused. That it is a digital setting, which is different. We're not made for 2D, 4D is what we prefer, I would say. So preparation is key, and literally the lighting and looking at each other, but also be very alert that you can observe others, but others observing you as well. And I would say if people pick up on that, they will be more alert in these kind of settings, which is hard because it's new to everybody.
Yeah, so more observing, maybe more listening as well.
Definitely.
Well, yeah. I think if I can jump in, I think that's part of it. Anne brings up a very good point, and that is, the fourth dimension. So we live in a 3-dimensional world, but that fourth dimension is the dimension of touch. And we can't do that. We can't be close to the audience. But I think there's still ways to connect. And the ways that we connect with the audience are, as she suggested, by having that interest, by reacting to what is being said. I think for someone speaking, there's nothing worse than someone sits there and they're just a blank stare. And, everyone who is a performer will tell you that they get energy from the audience. So to a certain extent, the audience has a part in this. And, maybe you think if you're calling from home or attending from home that you don't have a responsibility, but you do. Just as an audience has a responsibility to be polite and be attentive and not be distracting. Yeah. I think an audience has that duty also, and there's lots of videos there about people doing distracting things during a presentation. So I think it's a new dynamic. It's one that we're not used to. The three of us, Tarek, when you and I were in Orlando, and when Anne and I were doing the master course in Amsterdam, that fourth dimension was so critical of being in the audience, shaking hands. That tactile aspect of it has been removed from us, and but we still have a responsibility to prepare for these events, but also to respond properly.
Yeah,
absolutely.
What I teach people to, what helps if you nod, if you literally look at the person, fully focus, all those kind of things to answer the question that has been asked, is you can show it in your behavior. Don't slouch, don't look away. Just all these kind of things are really helpful.
Yeah, and also in terms of virtual as well, you can always use hands. You can still, okay, we see the first half of the body, right? That gives you at least the hand gesture, of course, the smile, the positive hand gesture for sure. I also count a lot on how you're seated. Like say you're sitting in front of the camera. If you're a little, hunched like this, or you're feeling insecure or closed, or are you open and sitting straight with confidence, you won't convey the same energy and the same image depending on how you're seated as well.
Yeah. Which in a way brings us back to, something the three of us have discussed before. And that is, have things changed all that much? The medium has changed, but if you were sitting at a meeting in a conference room surrounded by people, would you be slouching? No. Would you be groomed? Yes. Would you dress for the event? Yes. All these things. So it hasn't changed. I just saw a letter that a judge out of Miami or Dade County had to send out to attorneys and said, hey guys, you're appearing before me, and zooming in wearing your pajamas is not proper to file a motion, and using the headboard of your bed is also not proper to do so. And and I think a lot of people have gotten carried away in thinking, well, if I'm doing it from home, then I can change my behavior. We've only changed the medium. That's all we've changed. We should not change the sort of production quality of how we present, because that's what we look for.
Yeah. There are memes, speaking of this, Joe, there are memes online where you see people well dressed from the first top, and then they're wearing shorts. Well, and then if they have to stand up for something happened, they have to stand up. They forget for a second. Yeah. So you get this extraordinary situation.
Yeah. What's I know you had a follow-up question. What was that?
Yeah. Specifically, how do you quickly convey competence in a virtual meeting?
Anne, I'll let you take that one.
That's a good question. I would say it depends on if you know the people or not. But again, it has to do with alertness and presence and looking for possibilities. So it's not an excuse that if you say, I can only work from my garage, so there's stuff behind me, hang up a curtain or something. It's really important that if you want to be perceived as confidence, as we teach all the time, you have to show it. And that means in your gesture, your preparation, and the minute the meeting starts, like a minute before the meeting starts, you have to have that competence and show it in the way that you feel comfortable with. I mean, you should still be you in a way, but show it and be prepared. Yeah. What do you say, Tarek? What would you?
I would probably add to that the verbal aspect, and by that I mean, so if suppose you've done some research about who you're talking to, who you're going to be meeting with, and you went on their LinkedIn profile or Googled them and saw their interests, saw a dear project of theirs, something they spend their life working on, etc. Now I would advise that you think of a story, either through your own experience or someone that will relate the most to that person. And but when I say story, it doesn't mean you have to spend 5 minutes telling the story through a virtual meeting. You can literally tell a story in 15 seconds, in 10 seconds. It could be just a couple of sentences that will speak to who that person is. And so that would add to the nonverbal aspect, that would add the verbal communication and the storytelling aspect in order to relate and build rapport. So in terms of competence specifically, you want to tell a story that shows something you did and you did well in regards to the competence in question. And the skill that we're talking about. That's how I would approach it, and that's how I do it most of the time.
Yeah,
Joe.
That's a good point. I think for whether you're online or you are walking into an office, and many people now are going back to offices, I think the most important thing is, and I know, Anne, you and I talked about it, and Tarek, we covered this in in Orlando, and that is preparation. Nothing makes you look more competent than to prepare. I'm reminded, speaking of storytelling, I'm reminded of Churchill, who would arrive, and he had all these pithy, clever lines, and he just always looked supremely confident. And what people didn't realize is how many hours and days he had been rehearsing those lines, knowing that he would be doing a performance before Parliament, and he made it look so smooth. I mean, people literally would run to grab the last seats at these events because he would tell a story. This is what Tarek is talking about. But he had that presence that you talk about, Anne, where he would be walking down the hall, and it was a performance, arms behind his back, solemn, that gruff experience. But all the time, he's rehearsed everything that he would say. And then he gets in front of the group, and he just comes across as confident, and people took refuge in that confidence. But how do you get there? It's everything at the front end. It's the preparation. And I think that's one of the biggest problems that I find in industry is somebody says, hey, we're having a meeting on Tuesday. They show up and they've done nothing to prepare.
No.
They haven't read things. They're not there. Sometimes they don't even know it's in the agenda, like, oh, I have to go there. And then they are surprised that they cannot make their point, or that it doesn't come across. I think that's always a very sad thing in a way. Yeah.
Well, luck favors the doers, right? And the prepared. Truly, speaking of quotes, but it's so, it sounds cliche, but it's so true. Like, you can never stress how important stress enough how important that is. Preparedness. Come prepared. You know who you're talking to. You know who you are as well. You have a set of stories that will be relevant to that person and that topic. You can tell any story you want, right? But is it going to be relevant if you tell, story of, I don't know, Alice in Wonderland in that specific meeting, or do you want to look for something that is more directed towards who you're talking to?
On the preparation part, I would like to add, also be flexible with your preparation, because sometimes you do see people that are prepared, but that they're so, focused on this is how it should be going, that if something different happens, they block, they freeze, they can't do this anymore. Of
course.
So preparation is key, with a flexibility, I would add. Yeah.
Always.
That's a very good point. Very good point.
Always. Speaking of which, so do you think social distancing will stay with us for a long time and change our habits and the way we interact for a long time? Or do you think it's just a phase? This is Zulika asking this question.
Joe, can you look in the future?
I wish I could look into the future. This is a significant question. In fact, I was just asked that by a friend of mine at a TV station out of Waco, Texas yesterday. And we did a Zoom meeting, and he was asking me, are things going to change? And I reminded him, a form of storytelling, Tarek, you would have been proud of me, that I remember that in the 60s, when I was growing up, especially amongst boys, you shook hands. And maybe if you were a football player and so forth, when you huddled up, you might tap each other on the back. And now you look at football players, and with perfect abandon, they hug each other, they kiss each other on the cheek, and there's a lot more comfort. I think the story for me reminds me that greeting behaviors change over time. Now, if we look at ourselves as an anthropologist, I would tell you that because of our primate past, we always look at each other first, and then we greet by reaching out. This is how primates always have. Now, people have always said, well, we reached out because to show that we didn't have a weapon in the hand. I assure you, 70,000 years ago, there were no hidden weapons. Everything was the size of either a boulder or a big stick. We didn't have to show that there was no weapon, but it's that first initial touch. I think what's going to happen is initially we're going to be a little bit more restricted in how we touch each other and how we greet each other. But I think in time, it is in our DNA, I might emphasize, to touch, because the minute we touch, the very powerful neurotransmitter and hormone oxytocin is released. And at that magic moment, that's when we make these bonding connections. So we are predisposed to do the behavior, and we literally have receptors in the brain that are looking for that dopamine hit. So I think we'll return to something eventually, but I think over time, we will always change and adapt our greeting behaviors.
Yeah, I would probably add, it's so deeply built into us, the touching aspect and the way we connect through physical presence, that these things take tens of thousands of years to evolve in a creature. I mean, evolution tells us that this is not going anywhere anytime soon. So as you said, Joe, probably certain habits and certain, minor ways of we greet each other, and maybe we'll be a little bit more wary, but the need for social presence and touching is not going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, I don't think so. What do you think, Anne?
Well, when it comes to greeting, you already see a change. And let's not forget, there are many different forms on greeting. I don't know if I pronounce it right, but in Japan, the oyiji or something, or the katao, all those kind of things, or namaste. I think if we adapt to those kind of things, it's perfect to greet each other, or a little head nod that's happening already now with others. But the touching, I would say, as you said, that's so based in us, in our DNA. We cannot do that. Yeah,
that's a good point about the cultural aspects of it too. I'm glad you brought that up, because many cultures have changed this over time. For instance, in China, they don't bow as much as they used to in the 1800s, and it's been more westernized. I think we always have to sort of go back to, what would a small child do? They'll always, run up to their mommies with hands outstretched and so forth. Would we become, even in the United States, for instance, where in New York, there's more of the handshaking or the abrazo, the hug, and so forth, where in the American Midwest, 2 time zones away, there's less handshaking, always has been. There's more of the greeting. The farmers at a distance greet each other. They don't really shake hands. So we'll see adaptations of it, but it's certainly something that will affect us. But let me ask you this while I have your attention. It's a question that I was asked right before we came on to record, is how are we going to adapt to the mask? Because we don't see so much of the face, and now we see the eyes. What do you think?
Anne, you want to go?
Yeah, it's like, who is going to... I love this question. It's a question that a lot of people ask. Even in China, they already use a lot of masks. So we can, even before the crisis, so to say. You taught us well. I would say everybody should read your books, Joe, because then they realize it's not just the mouth and face that you can see expressions on people's face. So if we look at, if you block this, there's this whole expression up here, but also the whole body. And of course, when it's in a Zoom session, that's harder because we can only see the upper body. But there's so much more that we can look into, that we can look at to realize how people are feeling or what they think about certain situations without seeing the mouth.
The mouth.
Yeah.
Tarek?
Yeah, well, of course, and also like the eyes particularly, they tell so much. They tell us so much. But imagine, so someone is wearing a mask, but you also see them physically. Look at the hands. Look at where the feet are pointing. Look at how the body is turned toward one side or another. Are they trying to get away from this conversation, or are they fully with you?
There's
can get to these things.
There's a beautiful video, and Anne, I think it was you who sent it to me.
From New York.
In New York, of this photographer who went around and just photographed everybody from traffic cops to nurses to just people on the street with their masks on, smiling. And even with a mask on, you can tell people are smiling. You can see the shine in their eyes. You can see the gravity-defying behaviors that Anne is.
Yeah, it's a genuine one. If it's a genuine one, it's really.
Well, it's a genuine, because you can smile like this, and then you can actually smile.
Yeah. But so I think I think we get distracted because we see the mask and we focus on the mask when we should actually, as you say, Tarek, look at the whole body.
Yeah.
Look at the face in its totality, and I think we'll be able to tell if they're smiling. I guess that because I travel so much, I'm used to being on flights where people from other countries just out of caution routinely wear masks. And when I see the mask guy, I don't sit there and wonder why, that's their thing. But I look at their faces and their eyes, and it's and often they'll greet me by arching their eyebrows and so forth. So I don't think it's such a big deal as some people make it out to be, but it's certainly something that's trending, and it's people are sort of nonplussed, and they wonder, well, how do we read each other if we can't see their faces? And as both of you point out, we can still read. You can
see a lot, even if you don't see the mouth and the nose. There's a specific question for you, Anne, from Jamal. She'd like to know, in a situation of distress, is there an easy way to control your behavior and your nonverbals, so to actively try to control how you're behaving and your body language?
Oh, I love that question. A lot of people are always talking about control. How can I control myself? First, hooray if she is aware of it. Sometimes people aren't aware of that feeling, and then they show all these discomfort, behavior, and then they don't know it's happening. If you're already aware of your feelings, then you will have this realization that you can become more alert and more restrictive in a way. What I try to always say is make it as comfortable as possible for you. Joe, you always taught us about the discomfort and comfort paradigm. Mm-hmm. So if you realize this might be an uncomfortable situation for me or a different setting, you can do this in advance. Like, how can I create more comfort for myself? Mm-hmm. That could mean that you are going to have a coffee up front, or, something to calm yourself down. But when it's in the situation, really try to relax yourself also with your gestures. But you have to know your own discomfort displays. Like, if you start fidgeting and you're not aware of it, well, then other people will show you. But if you know, when I become stressed, I will do this more. And then you can realize, maybe I should leave my hands on the table, those kind of things. So the fact that she's aware is already a very big step.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How would you?
What about you?
Oh, I wanted to ask Tarek if that's okay, because you.
That's what I want to know.
You go really deep with people into the feelings they have and the comfort and discomfort. Is there something you would add to that?
It's a very good question. I would probably add, honestly, I try to be myself. Like, I try to be myself. I put myself in a mindset of just trying not to overreact. We're talking about a situation of distress here. So try to, keep calm. I use a breathing technique that also allows me to keep my heartbeat down. It's very simple. Anyone can do it. Just for a minute or two, try to actively control your breathing to a normal rate, or like a rate that is acceptable. And really quickly, your heart will follow. And you'll feel much calmer, and then you can think. You can think, and you can think clearly, specifically, and you can deal with a situation of distress in a much smarter way. And then your body will also follow. Instead of doing fidgety hand gestures, you'll feel calmer, and then your body will follow. I usually, I use a lot of breathing hacks like that. In a situation, I detect that something wrong is going on, distress, stress, crisis, whatever, and I enter actively in this breathing mode, and the rest follows, really. Joe?
It's a great question, because this has happened to me in live events. It has happened to me in phone conversations before we had Zoom and Google Meets and other things, and it's always it's always an interesting thing to deal with, because circumstances affect us. When I was an FBI agent, it seemed like every situation we went into was high stress, and then how do you calm down? And Tarek was talking about the technique of controlling your breathing, and I remember in one SWAT operation we were trying to just remain cool as we're getting there, and I'm working on calming myself down to the point where somebody said, "I think Joe's falling asleep." And
like too relaxed even. Yeah.
No, but because you don't want, in a high stress situation, stress affects your motor control. And if you're in a SWAT operation, you don't want to be shaking or anything. But I think in day-to-day stuff, we have to go into these situations with a sort of what we call a quiver. So a quiver is where you keep your arrows. You have to have a quiver prepared with those arrows that you're going to say certain things to deal with maybe someone that is being combative or difficult. The favorite one that the comedians use is somebody heckles and talks in the back and is distracting. And so you could say, "Hey, please knock it off." Or you can say, "Thank you, but I work alone." Okay. Little story accomplishes a lot. But Tarek brings up a good point. In teaching, teachers will say, if Johnny is mad and sad, they can't add. And what that tells us is, and you guys have read it in my books, that emotions cause limbic hijacking, and we can't think. We can't think. And that's why when we have an argument, we can never think of the clever lines to say. We only think of those 30 minutes later when the argument is over. And so we have to prepare for those difficulties and say, what am I going to do? Like Tarek says, work on my breathing. What do I say to attenuate things?
And I would just like to add one very relevant example, very recent as well. The toilet paper hoarding. That was, well, I actually did I detailed that in a video. Who did that though? I honestly didn't, but I'll tell you why exactly. So I studied crowd psychology a few years back, and I've done a lot of research about it. And one thing it teaches you, and I did a full video about that during the crisis, is that when fear spreads between people, it gets contagious, like any emotion, to be honest.
Sure.
And so that's exactly what happened. Fear spread. Everyone was fearful, and so they heard that their neighbor went to buy toilet paper, but also their friend, like, maybe I should go and buy toilet paper as well. What am I missing out on? And so you get this massive movement of people rushing to buy toilet paper in a pandemic.
Yeah.
I don't know. They could have hoarded tuna cans or pasta, but instead they hoarded toilet paper. This tells you how irrational people get, and we all do. That's how we function. When fear or any specific emotion hijacks your brain. So, and I want to add just another example is stock market. When everyone is selling, you start selling. You're like, okay, I have to sell. Everyone is selling. You just follow the movement. Who wins in the situation? The person who is looking at the crowd from an outsider's perspective is like, oh, everyone is selling. Okay, now I can buy much cheaper. Buy. And in 2 years later, this guy is a millionaire. This is how you beat a crowd. And this is how, by controlling,
your emotions.
That's why I like to teach people the helicopter technique. Because sometimes you're so in the situation, you're overwhelmed. And I love your word hijacking, because that's how it feels. You're hijacked. But if you teach people, or if they are understanding, I don't have to be in it, but I can zoom out, I can see what's going on. And there will always be a bit of stress in a situation. That is okay, but don't get hijacked. So zooming out, as a helicopter would do, is always very helpful for people to say, okay, what choice do I have right now? Which helps with stock market.
I'm glad you brought that up, because it reminds me of that great article you wrote for Psychology Today on the helicopter technique. And it's a metaphor, and it's a metaphor for exactly that. Don't be trapped on the ground. Like a helicopter, lift yourself up above it so you can look down. Distance yourself so you can look back. Because emotions, it's like a black hole. They pull you down. They keep you from thinking. They keep you from being rational and being logical.
Absolutely.
And so you have to find it. By the way, if anybody's interested, you can look it up on Psychology Today. I can't believe we're almost running out of time, so we better answer
we gotta,
questions.
Absolutely. So still regarding crises, that's what we're living right now. Jamal and Andreas would like to know, and that's a specific question for Tarek apparently, what role is storytelling playing during today's pandemic, and how can leaders avoid polarization using storytelling? It's a very, very deep question. Storytelling wise, it's okay. So you as a leader, you can tell a story to reach a goal. Okay. If you'd like to tell a story to divide people, say, or polarize. Say you're talking to 1,000 people and you want to polarize these people and divide them. You're probably going to try to look for a story that emphasizes how different people are and who's superior and who's inferior. And you can find plenty of examples of these if that's your goal, right? This is you can tell that story, and that's where what you will be doing is you repeat that over a year, 2, 3, and then people will start feeling that, you know, I'm not like him, he's not like me, she's not like me. This is how you create polarization and divisiveness. The other way to do that, you can use a story to unite people. So in times of crisis, for example, I would probably pick stories of how people throughout humanity's history came together from different backgrounds and built a beautiful world, created technology, went to the moon together, and built these massive enterprises that have advanced humanity's healthcare and education, etc., etc. Now, if you repeat that kind of story, 1, 2, 3, 4 years as a leader, well, you are uniting your community, your people. You're uniting them instead of focusing on what makes them divided. So that's how I would probably answer that question. Yeah.
And you can already see this is happening. The story almost tells itself. We can see people uniting in a time of crisis, like what can we do together? So it's a very nice element of this.
It's crisis, we do have, we do unfortunately also have examples where people were divided during this crisis. But crisis time is historically a great moment for leaders to bring people together.
Yeah. You know, it really is a profound question, and I love what you've said, because in crises we really do see the true measure of people. Do they unite or do they divide? And anybody can divide. It doesn't require much intelligence or character to divide, but to bring people together, wow, that is the trait of the exceptional. And what I find interesting is how the story of even when politicians fail to properly unite us, I think of the Italian families going on their balconies and banging on their kitchen utensils, and the ladies, the opera singers, who just on a whim go out. In a way, they're telling a story, and it's a story of unity. It's a story of we're in this together, of harmony and so forth. I think it's unfortunate that in certain circumstances, it's the politicians and others that are dividing us, when in fact people want to be together and demonstrate that that we care. And in doing so, they write that story.
Yeah.
And in the end, there will be two stories that are going to be told. They're going to be the great stories of, I just read of a fireman who was retired. He was a paramedic. He was living in the Midwest of the United States. He saw what was happening in New York, and he went to New York to help out. He was retired, he didn't have to do this. And he just passed away from the coronavirus.
Wow.
But those are the kinds of beautiful stories of neighbors seeing the nurse come home every day. She leaves at 5:30 in the morning. She comes home at 8. And so the neighbors decided to come and serenade outside her house with a violin and thank her. Those are the powerful stories that will resonate. Everybody that's on the wrong side of history, there will be that story too. But it's interesting how one event can have two stories. One is beautiful and one is ugly. And
I'm glad you said this, Joe, because history backs what you're saying. The general trend of from tribes to small kingdoms to nations to big blocs like the US, the EU. The general historic trend spanning thousands of years is going towards uniting people under one bloc, one big nation. This is the general trend. So it tells you what people want, and that's been a constant for years. Now, every now and then you get a bloc that vanishes, or the Soviet Union, for example. But they still, so that's called a correction, right? But still, the general trend is towards less countries and more union.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know this is one of the things that Anne is especially big on when she deals with organizations, and that's unifying.
Yeah. And I love the fact that you make it global, because I always take it to the like teams interacting, having conflicts, troubles, those kind of things. And when you see it in a small setting, I hope you are right. I really pray that it's going to be all in that people unite, because sometimes it's so hard for people to understand each other, to tell each other what they feel, what they see. So in teams, it's happening as well. Yeah.
One last comment about this.
Hang on one second, because and you told me a story yesterday, which I thought was wonderful about this, and that is that most of the time, and correct me if I'm wrong, the problem is always one of communication.
Yes, definitely.
And that sometimes, as you told me, maybe you can tell that story real quick, is the man that told you that nobody ever had told him how he comes across. Tell that story.
It is I think you have the same experience, Tarek, when people come to us for understanding behavior, how they come across. You have all these confrontations with them, which are helpful for them. And in this case, I helped this poor guy, I would say. He had a session with his manager, and his manager said, I don't know what it is, but you come across a bit arrogant. And the manager couldn't help him why that was the case. And I helped him by analyzing his behavior, that he would only talk in little, delivery sentences. He would never ask questions. He would just communicate in a sending way. And he was so shocked. He said, "Oh, thank you. Nobody has ever told me this." And that's what I mean. It's so much has to do with understanding each other. And if you know your behavior, you can adapt. And then he realizes, oh, now I can communicate in a different way with my team. So
absolutely.
I think that is the perfect things that we encounter when we working in with our businesses. I really like that, working with people, as you do as well, Tarek.
It's a very common case that I get as well. Indeed. Okay, moving on to Ricardo. It's a bit of a career advice question. How did you know you wanted to make the leap towards public speaking?
How do you know? Shall we start with Tarek?
Anne.
With you, Tarek.
Yeah.
So it probably started with lack of alignment in some decisions I made as a kid, granted. So I was good at math and physics, so everyone told me you should become an engineer. So I did study engineering, worked in the field for 4 years approximately, but something was missing. I was not content. And so I went through a 6 months soul searching. That was like about 10 years ago now, where I researched about people. I asked people about me to see me from the outside. I dug really deep and took the journey inwards, as they say, to understand who I was. And the answer was I wanted to be all about people, communication. I love words, and I really am fascinated by how words can move people and change course of history. So I quit everything, and I started doing storytelling. I started the first company, an agency, and I started a second consulting company for storytelling and executives and leadership. And I started getting calls for speaking. I never really sought speaking per se, Ricardo, but it started coming to me, and it was also aligned with the real me, with who I am and what I want to do. So I started taking these gigs, and now I'm doing it more often.
And what about you, Joe? Why didn't you retire? Why didn't you stop working?
What is retirement? I have no idea what that even sounds like. I didn't intend to be a speaker. I was in the FBI. You get a call and a school says, "Hey, can an FBI agent come out and talk about a career in the FBI?" And so you go out and you give a speech, and then later when I retired, I remember the first time, I think it was an insurance company, reached out and said, "We're looking for a speaker. Can you come out and talk about how to effectively interview people?" And so you find yourself in these situations. And I would tell you that, some people craft their life to become speakers. I didn't do that. But what I did do was that when I found myself in that role, I then began to model what I thought were good speakers and good styles. And it's something that I'm still working on. So for me, it was just about modeling, where I know in your case, Anne, but you can go into the details. You actually went into the art and craft of speaking and performing and
the verbal and physical behavior expression academy. So that's the Academy of Arts.
Yeah.
But I must say, I never planned, as you say, kind of happens in a way.
Yeah.
And I remember that I was still in school and somebody asked me to give a workshop on stage presence, which is something that comes natural in a way.
Yeah.
And I remember it was for talking about stories, Tarek. It was with 12 bankers in 12 gray suits, and they wanted to learn something about stage presence because they had to present numbers and all those kind of things. And I remember it so well because I was talking about appearance and how you can take the stage, how you can make eye contact. And I thought everybody knew this already. But the surprise they had, to me, I was shocked. I'm like, doesn't everybody know this? And it was that then and there that I decided to make
And you've been doing that for 14 years, so obviously there's a need.
There is a need. There's still a need, and more, I would say. Well, especially as we talked about the digital setting, I think more and more people will realize it's how important it is to be aware of your, not just only body language, but your behavior, your style, what you say as you, there's still a need for us and for everybody.
Joe, and we're almost at 1 hour, but if you have more time, we can keep going.
Yeah, I can do a few more minutes, sure.
Okay.
By the way, I wanted to I wanted to thank you, Tarek, for putting this together. I know you're in lockdown, but still, you know, you were agreeable to put this together, and I know, Anne, you're also locked down at home, as am I. But I'm glad you were able to put this together, because we often have this opportunity to put our heads together, but it's nice when we can record something and share some of that knowledge with other people. So thanks, guys.
Next time we'll do it live. Next time we do it live in Paris, Tarek.
It's a pleasure. Next time, hopefully live.
Live and at the steps of the Eiffel Tower. Okay.
Yeah, of course, with 10,000 people in front of us.
Because
it's funny how
you're a people person, Tarek. I mean, we're all people person, but you're like really engaging with audiences. And how is this for you? I was wondering. Like, you don't.
I'm very extroverted. I get energy from being around people. So it's weird. I know it will sound weird to a lot of people, but the more people you put in a place, the happier I get. I like to mingle and talk to everyone and learn. You know, you learn something from everyone. Verbally and non-verbally. So
you picked that up well, Anne, because you missed out in Orlando, but Tarek and I were at this huge event in Orlando, and people were just gravitating around Tarek, and we sat down at a food court. I mean, this is the middle of nowhere. We sat down in this food court, and people came and they're sitting around, and I mean, there were even teenage children there with their mothers, and teenagers don't even hang around with adults, and they were just mesmerized with his storytelling. And I remember as we were walking away, the young girl, she must have been about 13 or 14, she says to her mother, "That is the most interesting event I've ever attended." And it says, we were eating.
That's true.
And
it was fun.
But that's the gift of being a people person. And
it's a lot of fun. Shall we take one more question?
Sure.
All right. Maria Ali would like to know if you can pick up on deception using body language, or is it just a fiction type of thing we hear of?
It's so funny that everybody always asks this question. Can you see when somebody is lying? Please let us know.
if you don't mind, let me just answer that, because I've spent, I think before both of you were born, I was studying this.
That's likely accurate.
Thank you.
No, I mean, that's not what I meant. That's not what I meant. You know what I mean.
No, I know what you meant. I've been looking at this for 50 years, almost, since 1971. And I can tell you that the research is ample, that there is no Pinocchio effect, that there is no single way of detecting deception, that there are behaviors that we may observe as a result of stress, anxiety, concern, and so forth. But there is really nothing that you can see on the screen that we can scientifically say, oh, he covered his mouth, or he scratched his nose, or he looked away, and therefore it's deception. All we can say is, I asked a question and the person's response was odd or anxious, or that type of thing, but you can never really say it was deceptive. All we can do is really follow it up. And you were asking me, Tarek, earlier today about the Joe Navarro Body Language Academy, and we created this. And that is the number one question that people ask. Mm-hmm. And Anne knows this, and we have to say, yeah, you may be asking this question because you've seen this on TV or whatever, but the reality is that we use nonverbal communications, just as we've spent better than an hour here talking about things that are even more important, which is how to communicate effectively, how to be more empathetic.
Absolutely. And Joe, it's something you always tell us is you can detect comfort, discomfort, yes. But it is harder to say lie, not lie, or it's harder to get into that just with nonverbals. You need a bigger picture, you need verbals as well, you need an overall baseline and comparison, etc.
Sure. I mean, even intrusive questions may bother you. Why is this person asking me this? And that may cause difficulty. Anne, how often do you? I think you told me you get this question every day.
Yeah, every day. Well, not maybe every day on Sundays, not, but it's intriguing to me why people ask the question, because the answer you just said, I'm always asking like, okay, but why do you want to know? And it's much more intriguing to say, okay, what do you want to prevent from that? Why do you want to pick up on if somebody's lying? Now, if it's with children, sometimes you can see it very well. They're like, no, the expression sometimes with children is different than in a business setting. So I always say, like, try to pick up on all the signals, but be very much aware, like if a manager says, okay, how can I see if people are lying? Then I want to know why they ask that question. Yeah. Are you uncertain about your team, or is there something you think that might happening? Is there something like you picked up on but you're not sure? So I'd rather go to the question behind the question. Why do you want to know this?
That's really good. That's really good. Is why this question? I don't sit there and talk to people and wonder, is this person lying to me or not? I just I engage in the conversation.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Especially in teams, it's necessary to figure it out. Sometimes as a CEO, you can't see everybody. You can't control everything as people they want to do. So if you pick up on signals, you might come up with this question. But then it's interesting to see, why did you ask that question?
Yeah.
One last question, and we can probably go over this real quick.
Real quick.
Real quick.
Yeah.
Any ethical questions that arise from the use of nonverbal communication, and what could you tell us about manipulation? I know you have a very specific take on this, Joe, or Anne. as you wish.
I'll let Anne go first. I want to hear her answer on this one.
Another one of the questions, like, do people lie? And when you know about influencing others, is it manipulation? Well, I like the word influencing others, and I don't think it's manipulation, because we are influencing each other all the time. You know, we send out things, we choose what we wear, we're interacting all the time. And yes, that sometimes is a conscious decision. I don't think it's manipulation, but people, of course, sometimes we see people that are manipulating others. I recently saw a story in the newspaper that an 104-year-old man was manipulated by somebody because that person took away all of his money by coming across in a very nice and gentle way. Now that you could call manipulation, but I think in our line of business, it's more of influencing others in a way that you can get your goals achieved. But I don't know what you would say, Joe. Is that, do you think you came across people who did manipulate, I think, as an FBI agent?
Yeah, I did. And to that question that's often asked is, you know, knowing body language and using body language, is that manipulation? And I say, the answer is no. The fact is that we influence each other. You know, when we get dressed to go to church, when we get dressed to go to a party, when we get dressed to go to an event, we are doing that to make ourselves feel better and to be more pleasing to the eye to other people. All cultures do this. The purpose of that is to influence. It's not to manipulate. I mean, you have free will. You can walk away at any time. You can reverse directions. I mean, when I get this question, I said, well, listen, when your car is dirty and you clean it, is that manipulation? Because because it certainly influences me. I'd rather look at a clean car than a dirty car.
Is it manipulating me though? No.
Yeah. So, you know, as long as people have free will and so forth. I mean, I think we were talking the other day, and I said, are good manners? You know, what are good manners? They're influential. They're not manipulative. I don't open the door for both men and women to walk through ahead of me to manipulate them. I'll never see these people again. But if it makes their day and they can say, wow, somebody opened the door for me, that's influence.
I agree. There's a lot of amalgamation between influence and manipulation, and 90% of what you see is influence, which we do naturally. We try to influence. Manipulation has a very specific malicious thing where someone has a plan and is acting on it, has a step-by-step plan, but that's not what you encounter most of the time. In one sentence, what advice would you give everyone in order to survive and thrive in an ever-changing world?
Are you asking me or Anne?
I can start if you want.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, survival to me is about adaptability, and so you cannot be stuck in dogma and in the past if you want to survive in the future. And that is backed by history and prehistory, and the species that have survived and thrived are the ones that were the most adapted to the new world every time there was a major change. Yeah, I'd say, you know, seek, if you're doing business, what are people's needs in today's world? Are they the same as before the crisis? Likely they have shifted, and we started seeing that. So what can you offer of value to these new needs? This is how you adapt, and this is how you survive and thrive.
I love the word value. That is a really good one.
Yeah.
You want to create value, and I would say not only as a business, but also as a person yourself in interaction. Like, who are you? If I would sum it up, I would say, okay, be alert, have self-awareness, try to adapt. And also, this might sound weird, but also have fun. You know, there's a lot of people are very serious, and I know it's a serious time, and it's always a serious time, but also have fun, because that also helps you to survive.
Yeah.
I agree.
You know, that you're right, Anne. You know, why do something if it isn't fun? You know, we always think of adapting as being negative, but I know that for instance, on Anne's part, she had to adapt to making her business bigger, to hosting more events, and doing things. And sometimes we have to push that envelope and you know, adapt to something that's bigger than us, to getting more work or doing other things. And we also have to prepare for that. It's not just about changing jobs. You know, some people will have to go from coal mining to, you know, how to put up a tower that generates electricity cleanly. That's a big adaptation, but sometimes it's about how do we grow our business and adapting to those extra pressures. I would say, you know, for me, I think it was your fellow countryman Louis Pasteur who said, "Chance favors the prepared mind." And if I've learned anything, both you know, coming to a country as a refugee and then trying to adapt within that country and then to grow, is that it's not through physical labor, but it's preparing the mind. And if you can prepare, and if you can make the mental sacrifices, then there really are no limits. But you have to be prepared, and you have to prepare the mind so that it can weather the small, the big, and the changes. Yeah.
Beautiful words, and I agree. I fully agree.
Yeah.
I think we're almost there. There's a lot of questions we didn't get to, but it's okay.
Next time.
Maybe next time, and maybe yeah, we'll do these more often.
Yeah.
Let us guys know. Yeah. Go ahead.
If I may, as before we go,
Yes.
because I think the public would love to know. So, what do you have going next as we finish this up, Tarek? What have you got going? Because I know you're doing some of the stuff online, but
yeah, so I launched the second company in December, tailored to executives and leaders in terms of how to be more persuasive, influential.
Yeah,
using both verbals and nonverbals, using extensive storytelling, the right story tailored to the right audience, and how you can persuade this way, always ethically. Yeah, I'm been putting the website on. It's already on, and I'm hoping to be doing more webinars like that and more talks. I think it's very valuable to people.
Yeah,
I like sharing information.
and I hope you'll think about writing a book one day.
It's on the to-do list, but the timeline has not been set.
Yeah. What about you, Anne? What do you?
I'm trying to write that book, so that is one thing. Writing,
Nice.
but a lot of online sessions as well, coaching one-on-one, but also in other sessions. And what I'm particularly looking forward to, if I may mention this, is in December we're having the live session again, 2 days in Amsterdam with you, Joe. So I'm very happy that well, fingers crossed, but that looks like it's going to go through with everything.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. Last year's event.
I'll be there too.
Yeah, last
year's.
Yeah,
but I mean with the virus, yeah.
Yeah, last year's event. No, we know what he meant. Last year's event was huge. This year's event we had to postpone, but I'm looking forward to that. That is so much fun. I just heard from, well, I won't say his last name, but Mark emailed me from Seattle, and he said he will be there, and it's a fun opportunity to both learn and hang out together, and and have a good time. But you've also been writing some articles for Psychology Today, and I hope you'll continue to write, because I think these video conferences are great, but I think it's always nice to have that piece of paper in front of you. And I'm saying that to both of you, to where you can look at it and say, oh yeah, there's that, and have fun with that. Yeah.
Sounds good. Maybe you'll produce the transcript of this session as well, so that it's also written.
That we have a book.
I didn't think of that. Yeah.
It could be fun. And if I may say, because you won't say this, Joe, and I really want to put it out there for you, because you're always so humble. But in the meantime, if people are really intrigued about all of this, and they're not readers because you have these amazing books, but they want to interact in an online setting, definitely they can do this in the Body Language Academy that you created, because I think that is really helpful for people if they're not really obvious.
Yeah, thanks. 3 years in the making, and it's finally launched. And I know you've listed it on the website, Tarek, but it's the jnbodylanguageacademy.com. And a lot of work went into that. Something like 40 hours of video recording alone. We used an incredible amount of books to support the instructional material, and really, this is the only way to reach so many people, because travel is so difficult now. So it's there, it's on the shelf, it's available, and thanks for asking, and thanks for inviting me to.
Pleasure. It's always a pleasure
to have you around, Joe. Thank you for the opportunity, Tarek. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, guys. I would just add to Joe's Academy, because we had Angela asking about how best to learn body language and facial expressions. Joe's Academy, and I would add a book that you actually wrote. It's one of my favorites. It's the Dictionary of Body Language. I have this book. It's very straightforward. It goes through all of the body language and facial expressions in a very straightforward manner. Maybe that's a good way to start the Academy and that book particularly.
And then in December live.
and this December live. There's a lot to be gained from each. You can learn a lot from books. There's a lot to gain from a online course, which takes months to do, but also from live presentations, because then you get to hang out with the instructors and participate and so forth. So there's enough material out there. But in closing, I would just say to people, learn to read the whole body. It's not just about the face. Don't worry about deception. Learn to enjoy people and use the information to better communicate. And
sounds great.
Sound
advice. Well, thank you both for being here. I really appreciated this session. Maybe we'll do more of these. Thank you for your time, for the valuable advice. I'm sure people will love it. And let's stay in touch.
Thank you, Tarek.
Okay.
Thank you for hosting. And hope to see you live soon.
With a lot of people around.
In Paris. In Paris.
Yes, absolutely. Bye, guys. Take care.
All right. Take care.